What's up guys, it's Punchy, and once again we got a pretty nice weekly Deepwoken patch with some new stuff to mess around with. Building on the previous update, there are some overall improvements and changes besides the new faction progression added last week. I'm not gonna lie, this update gets pretty crazy. As always, if you want to experience everything new, please try it out for yourself and hop in game. Anyway, I'm excited to show you what's up, and let's get right into it. With an overall change to how Deepwoken works at a fundamental level, we have changes to base HP for all characters. Essentially, in this update, base HP for Power 1 players has been increased by 40 HP, jumping them up from 160 to 200 health respectively. To balance this out, base HP gained through each power level has dropped from 6 to 4 with a bit less than before. So I want to clarify that when reaching Power 20 or max level, your health remains the same through power levels and it should not be any different than before. Everything is exactly the same, but this time we start with more HP at a lower level. For whatever reason, for fighting players or learning how to farm Sharkos, having more health at a lower level sounds good for the overall player experience. Found inside the Deepwoken character creator, we have now gained access to a new Echo upgrade. These are permanent upgrades for your character on all of your slots and they can really help you out. So today we gained the carrying capacity Echo upgrade, which is pretty cost effective and lets you carry around stuff on all of your builds. Honestly, this is very simple, but I enjoy, having more access. Moving in-game, we also have a whole bunch of new outfits, the 2D ones instead of equipment, and they're really easy to find and use on basically any build. First off, with the Etrean Guard, we have a classic Deepwoken fit that's easy to dye and perfect for lore cosplay. I think this is a super cool and flexible option with a ton of outfits, and I love it. Next up, with the bandit outfits, we have the first with the Bounty Hunter. So this outfit belongs to the Arisia bandit leaders with a mix of red, white, and black, and honestly, it's probably one of my favorite picks since it's subtle and classic. Moving forward onto the Corsair Outlaw with the other bandit set, there's not really too much to say about this option, but it's clean and lets you become a bandit entirely. And finally, with the Soul Bad Guy outfit, we have the Guilty Gear Veteran Adventurer drip. I gotta say, this fit is one of my favorites added today, and it's something that people will probably want to use. This has been around for a very long time, but we get to use it, and yeah, it's super cool. All of these options are fairly easy to find, either dropping from the NPCs themselves which have these outfits, or from their respective locations, and yeah, they're not too difficult to find. Alongside this, there's also a new craftable equipment called the Pathfinder's Lantern. This item is fairly easy to make, only requiring 1 dying ember, 1 iron, and 1 fiber. Anyway, it looks pretty good on any build and also emits light in a small radius around the player. Next up, with a giant buff to the new bounty boards, there's almost double the amount of options and faction progression to be gained from a single mission. There's totally new jobs for each faction bounty at the boards, more options to pick from in total, and improvements about how much rep you get off completion. This is pretty awesome and speeds up faction rep by so much. Another really cool change that was added in today's update was a whole new keybind for the offhand weapon. Usually, you would have to press M2 to activate a side gun in combat, which made it very annoying and clunky to feint with, but luckily this has been changed, allowing for full modular control over your side gun in combat. Kicking off our balance adjustments for this week's update, there are some massive changes that I got to address for overall combat. With a major focus on gap closing teleports, let's begin this patch with a nerf to Ironsing. Ironsing's metal fakeout was a fairly versatile option that opened up player defense while closing the gap with a simple teleporting backstab. This sort of attack was solid and used in many combat interactions, but before this update, it was almost fully unpunishable. You see, during metal fakeout, the user would be invincible to all attacks, forcing their opponent to defend and basically respect the move entirely. Without a doubt, this was very powerful, so much so that metal fakeout iframes have been removed in this update. So if you see somebody stanced up and I guess winding this move up, you can land any attack since they're no longer immune to cancel it. Despite this nerf, I still think that metal fakeout will remain a top tier pick for Ironsing builds due to its range and chasing potential. Next up, with a very similar mantra, mantra, we have yet another nerf to Shadowcast's Encircle. This ability was the renowned king of mantra or attack stacking, allowing the user to act however they liked during its windup. This was so powerful, but today it received a major nerf in application. In this update, Shadowcast's Encircle no longer lets the user attack with M1s or mantras during the windup. To my knowledge, nothing else works with this mantra, but weapon criticals still seem to stack on top of Encircle damage. And to somewhat balance out this fundamental nerf, Encircle's windup has decreased significantly, allowing the user to teleport 2 players much faster than before. In summary, with a loss of application and a buff to speed, we'll see if this Shadowcast mantra still holds up in the current PvP meta. Moving along with some changes to another elemental mobility option, we have some love for Lightning Assault. In this update, Lightning Assault's base damage has been improved alongside the bonus coming from its level upgrades. For some reason, this thing did absolutely pitiful damage compared to other hard-hitting assault mantras, and finally, it's around a similar range as the rest. Next up, with some changes to legendary weapons, there's a few to break down. Starting off with the Deepspindle, a weapon that's received a lot of changes here and there, we have an overall nerf to the standing ground crit. This multi-hit attack is kinda hard to read and locked players in place after it was landed, but the most annoying part was the unventable multi-slash at the end. Despite dealing lower damage, players had to sit there and accept that damage without having an escape option available. Luckily though, in this update, it's now possible to vent out of the Deepspindle multi-slashes, resetting the fight back to neutral. This weapon will probably still remain solid, but the critical has definitely been nerfed. Moving on to another interesting change, we have the Imperial staff and its, I guess, adjustments. This strength weapon is one of the most creative with a few different crits, but there's one in particular that was a bit unfair. The aerial crit for this weapon was an attack with a weird animation and pretty fast windup, which was also hard to punish, but in this update, its overall windup and hitbox have been nerfed slightly to hopefully incentivize other critical usage. Besides that, the weapon damage itself has also been increased with a small buff to strength scaling with the weapon, so we'll see how this performs, but it's still not a bad pick. Besides this, to finish everything off, there has been a huge fluctuation in, I guess, ether cost for a lot of different mantras. Taking a look at Gale, some of these mantras have reduced prices, probably because they have to inhale and receive an additional buff to, I guess, get full advantage of that mantra, and ice mantras have received a nerf, increasing the cost of their mantras. I'm not too sure if this was the root of the issue, but I guess Frost was pretty spammy, and I don't know what to feel about Gale because I think that was also pretty spammy. Although this has happened, Gale mantras should be easier to cast in quick succession, and Frost, it might be a little bit harder to do. So leave your thoughts down below about how they should change these mantras, or if Ether was the right way to go. And with that, that's all I got for this week. If you're chilling, check out Battle Royale for all the new content and get some dubs with your friends. I mean, if you're super lucky, you might see me out there, so keep an eye out. Anyway, for even more exclusive update content just like this, make sure to like and subscribe. We're super close to hitting 100k subs, and let's get there. Thanks again, it's punchin' time.